Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first episode of the 107 podcast with myself, Jacob, and joining me today, and the regular host slash permanent co-host is Ash.
Hi, nice to meet you. My name's Ash, and welcome
And
to the podcast.
yeah, welcome. I think obviously this is going to be a pilot, so do bear with us. But I think obviously we've got names, so yeah, Jacob, and then with Ash as well. And we'll start off with what on earth the podcast is actually supposed to be. Because we don't want it to just be like another random F1 podcast, which it will inevitably turn into anyway. But we don't want it to be a podcast with loads of just complete, absolute rubbish. We'd love to get to the point and keep the episodes reasonably engaging and interesting rather than just banging on and on and on, like some seem to, which is perfect. So that's the idea of the podcast. If you have any questions or need anything else, you can see the contact email address in the bottom right hand corner, or obviously you can read off. I will read it off right now for anyone audio listening. It is just the 107pod at gmail.com. The 107 as in numbers pod at gmail.com. And you can also follow us on TikTok, Instagram, and also we will be you'll be listening to us on it, Apple Podcasts or Spotify. So yeah, there we go. But all right, so should we get started with how on earth we actually got into Formula One in the first place? Ash, do you wanna kick things off?
Yeah, I watched it ages and ages ago with my dad. Back when there was Damon Hill, Jacques Villeneuve, Michael Schumacher. It kind of got a bit samey and boring, so I kind of fell out of love with the sport, and then started again in 2010, which was probably one of the best seasons to start it. And yeah, I've just been following it ever since. Love the technical side and the drama. I think I'd describe Formula One as a massive circus show around the world, and occasionally they go racing. Um, so yeah, that's how I got into it. Been a proper fan since 2010, and enjoying it so far.
Nice, awesome. And I think on a similar vein to you, I sort of started just as I think Schumacher retired for the first time. And then I think my first full season was 2007. Obviously, when Hamilton came in, I think he was the main reason why I sort of got into it. And then I watched all the way through to about 2010, 2011, and then purely because Sky Sports F1 is bloody expensive. Didn't watch it again up until maybe 2017, 2018. And then have been back into it since, and then properly back into it, more invested, probably since 2018. So like I think the first season I was like, oh yeah, keeping an eye on stuff, whereas then I was watching the races week in, week out. So yeah, but that's probably about it from me, I guess.
I think it's good to mention that you're based in Denmark and I'm here in the UK.
Yes. So obviously, Ash,
you're lucky and have F1 TV.
Yes, so luckily I don't have to
Sports.
deal. Yeah, I don't have to deal with Sky Sports, which is brilliant because Sky Sports. Well, Sky are just arguably one of the worst companies as far as I'm concerned. So there goes our Sky sponsorship. But I think that the Sky F1 team are pretty good. I will give them that. But Sky themselves as a organization, I don't get on board with anything that they do pretty much. But that being said, obviously when you have commentators like Crofty and stuff like that, like you're kind of pulled in. But luckily, yes, I do have F1 TV. And obviously being in Denmark, I moved here for a job a few years ago. Obviously I've got a bit of a soft spot for K-Mag as well, absolutely. And seeing him come back at the beginning of the 22 season was incredible. Like getting rid of Mazepin and getting K-Mag back in the Haas was absolutely brilliant. Yeah, really, really cannot complain whatsoever. So
maybe that's a talking point for a future episode. In do we ever see Formula One backing out of all these commercial partnerships that they have, going straight on F1 TV? But there's positives and negatives, but that's a discussion for another time.
I don't think it would be an issue if they just allowed F1 TV in any country. Or like even if they just made it as expensive as the alternative, like even then, just purely to give the people the options, I think wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Again, I don't think it should be expensive, but I think like giving people the option would be good. There's a reason why when you buy your gas or electric or whatever, there are multiple choices.
True. There's only a one F1 though.
Yeah,
But,
personal opinion though.
so,
Yeah,
should we start with the kind of recap of the 2022 season?
let's do that. Yeah,
New
all right.
regs, new drivers, new tracks.
Yes, a couple of new
It was
tracks.
definitely
Yeah.
an interesting season, despite the fact that Red Bull dominated 75% of it.
Yep.
The cars look stunning.
They're visually incredible,
Yeah.
and the fact that pretty much every single one of them have a different philosophy, apart from Aston Martin halfway through the season introducing this B car, which came out of nowhere. I think that every single one looks vastly different. It was also pretty interesting. We'll touch on Drive to Survive season 5 in a different episode, but it was also very interesting to hear George Russell saying, "Oh, our Mercedes looks really fast," and then it being arguably one of the worst cars on the grid in terms of porpoising and drivability. It's just horrendous. But
I mean, for me, the Ferrari last season was the best looking car, followed by the Aston.
Yeah, I think for me the Ferrari, and then I'd have to argue, like, especially us obviously going in person, I think the McLaren really stands out, and I did have a bit of a soft spot for the Williams too. The Williams looked really good too.
That's definitely one thing that doesn't come across on the screen with these 2022 cars is what they look like in real life.
In person. Yeah.
Myself and Jacob went to the Hungary Grand Prix last year, and actually seeing the cars in real life, that orange does pop. That Aston Martin green does pop. Even the BWT Alpine, the pink and blue, does actually kind of work in real life.
Yeah, it really
It's
does.
just hard to see it on a TV, no matter how good.
I think also because obviously when we were there, we were watching the Porsche Super Cup as well. Those BWT Porsches really pop. Like, you can immediately tell, like, or track them even from a kilometer away, like exactly where they are. Obviously you can see cars from a kilometer away, but they pop more than the other cars. Those liveries really do look brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
And obviously the main change being closer racing, which it happened. We got it. Definitely, at least in the first few races. I mean, if you look even at Hungary, when there was like Alonso, Magnussen, I think it was Bottas there as well, just like that 5-6 car.
That Daniel Ricciardo double overtake in Hungary was incredible, and that's the sort of stuff that we've been missing, I guess. Without these new regs, we probably wouldn't have got closer racing like that. I can't remember. I'm actually going to Google it. But the number of overtakes, I'm pretty sure, was higher than like the previous 2 or 3 seasons, like maybe even combined.
Really, I guess also, like I said, with some of the tracks, they've added DRS zones, extended DRS zones as well. So that adds to it. But definitely, I think a big thumbs up from everyone on how the cars looked, how they behaved. Different design philosophies means. Well, we're hoping for a mix-up in the races, but once Red Bull got on top of the reliability issues and Ferrari stopped shitting the bed.
Pretty much,
Well, started shitting the bed, rather, then it was kind of just max all the way.
Yeah, I think, obviously, going back and flicking through some of the results as well and looking at how terribly Ferrari managed the entire team, essentially, from pit stops to strategy to whatever... I think that they shouldn't have dominated as much as they had, because they were schoolboy errors as far as I'm concerned. Like, I think if you look at Monaco, for example, that was horrific with like double stacking but not being prepared for the double stack. Or in Great Britain, where you pitted Carlos and gave him new tyres, you left Leclerc out. But even if you'd pitted both and let Lewis Hamilton and given Lewis Hamilton the position in P1, you would have been on new tyres, and Lewis Hamilton's on old scrubbed hards. So
that sounds familiar.
So I mean, like, well, yeah, it does sound familiar. Like, even then, like that's just 2 that we can pick off the top of our head, and we're not strategists whatsoever. I mean, semi-professional potentially, but we're not strategists at all. And also, just to go back very, very slightly, the number of overtakes from 2021 to 2022, so obviously 2022 with the new regs, went up 30%. It doesn't give me, the specific numbers in the article that I found, but Alonso and Vettel had the most, but obviously Vettel having more than Alonso. That's where we're at. So
score 1 for the old guard.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, it just goes to show that, like, obviously it was very interesting that Alonso obviously kept Piastri out of the car or other younger drivers out of the car, but very clearly there's a reason why he's still on the grid, even at 40, 41 years old. He can still pull it out of the bag. Well, not even pull it out of the bag, just perform every week.
Well, I read somewhere he feels that like his reflexes, his physical performance is fine. What he doesn't like getting older is the constant traveling, right? Because there's not only traveling to every single city and then also going back to the base in the UK, but they've got sponsor events, they've got PR events, they've got their own marketing and stuff to do. They're always traveling, and I think that he says is what takes a toll, rather than getting in the car with all the G forces, the brain going at 100 miles per hour. So it'll be interesting. I mean, like, if you can perform, you're old enough or you're young enough, right? So that's the same with Max. Came in when he was super young.
Yeah, didn't even have a driver's license.
Yeah, absolutely. Just smashed it. So, yeah, 2022, happy, went well. 2023 will be interesting. Now they've kind of got a year, essentially like a year's testing with these new cars. I think for Mercedes, they kind of saw it as like, right, this is like a year's testing because they improved massively towards the end of the season. So
yeah, they really did.
2023, I think, will be a lot closer. I guess kind of leads up into like the 2023 discussion of the cars, liveries, and personally, I think let's start with Red Bull. I think Red Bull are the team to beat.
Yeah.
Livery is it's Red Bull, right?
I would love to be a Red Bull livery designer. Red Bull livery designer is arguably one of the easiest jobs in the world. It's just copy paste every year. It's like, oh no, we've now got a slightly new sponsor. Just literally just update the PNG. It's not rocket science, but honestly, it still looks good. I'm one of the people that thinks it still looks good. I think it's on. If you will look back in like 10 years when they changed their livery, you'll look on it the same way as the old McLaren, like Marlboro liveries. It'll be similar veins.
There's that romanticism with a winning car. And I say Red Bull are a marketing company, right? Those are the colours it has the team. But I don't know if you've ever seen some of their testing liveries.
Yes, yeah. Like, some of them are really, really good.
Just bring them in for a race or two. Like they had the white livery in 2021.
Yeah.
For Japan and Honda, which they used in Turkey, and that car looked beautiful. And I'm like, come on, man, just a couple of seasons every now and then. There's a whole potential yellow Ferrari that people were like, it'd be so nice, but brand is everything nowadays. But they look like the team to beat. Max looks like the driver to beat. They did a ton of laps. Obviously, testing is, you can't really look into testing too much because they're sandbagging, fuel loads, tires, engine modes.
You can and you can't.
3-4 Grand Prix is definitely. I wouldn't say ominous for the rest of the grid, but it looks like some teams will be like, we might have to play catch up.
Yeah, I think the only team that I've seen that have come off badly from testing has been McLaren. Everyone else seems to have had a reasonably good test. And I think the first 3 races up until like what is essentially being dubbed the spring break, where there's like 3 weeks without a race, where we were supposed to go to China. That break, that like up until then, I think we'll sort of see who who's actually going to be better and we'll establish the pecking order. Thank you. But I think that it will also be very interesting because I know that, for example, again, McLaren, they're bringing in an upgrade package like very early on in the season. So are Alpine. So I think that it will establish a very early pecking order, but at the same time, like it could drastically change. You don't know how well these Alpine upgrades are going to go. These Aston Martin upgrades. Not that they need upgrades by the looks of things, but it's going to be interesting for sure.
Yeah, because it's knock-on effect, because you have to be, from 2022, you have to catch up to where Red Bull were, and then you kind of have to add a little bit more to beat Red Bull. So, I think I'm glad Ferrari up there, giving Charles and Carlos the car. I will hold my hands up. I love Charles Leclerc, and I hope he becomes a champion. He's definitely got the skills to be a champion. So I hope Ferrari can give him the car and the strategy to help him be a champion. So Fred Vasseur coming in, he's got a lot of experience with Alfa Romeo. He seems like a no-nonsense guy, that he's not going to take shit from anyone, and if something's wrong, he will fix it rather than trying to be the nice guy, which I think is what was accused of previous team principals before. It's like, it's Ferrari, you can't do this, you can't do that. And I think that was a criticism put at Mattia, was that because he was a Ferrari guy through and through, been at the team for years, it kind of was like, I don't want to upset. But I think a lot of people are kind of forgetting where Ferrari were a few years ago to being the fastest car at the start of 2022 is well done. But it seems that as the pressure was being put on, as they're like, hey, we've got a car that can fight for race wins here, pole positions, it seemed that got to them a little bit, and they played it a little bit too safe at times, which hampered them in the end.
Yeah, this is not reminiscent of the Ferrari from 15 years ago when you had Schumacher there. But again, I do think that it further proves just how essential Schumacher was to that Ferrari team. It wasn't Ferrari doing it; it was Ferrari and Schumacher. And I think that's exactly what Hamilton's done at Mercedes. Exactly the same sort of process, exactly the same sort of thing. Those years of dominance as well. And speaking of Mercedes in terms of their preseason testing, I think as per usual they've come out and said that the car is rubbish. Usual Mercedes sandbagging, Mercedes playing everything down. But I think that especially given how well the end of last season ended up, I think that probably Red Bull, Ferrari, and then it will be Mercedes and Aston Martin probably challenging for that third, fourth position, I think, and then you'll have the mids, and then the back of the pack as well. But I think Mercedes are in a semi-decent position. I know that one thing that's come out of testing is obviously they said that their current car, the philosophy of the zero side pods, they're gonna give it one more go. And then if halfway through the season it's looking like it's a no-go, then they're going to switch to a different philosophy, which will obviously be closer to the Ferrari and the Red Bull philosophy, which I think is particularly interesting. I think it's great that they're giving it another go. Very clearly, they have a strong belief in the philosophy of the car, but just throwing away yet another season. You've got Hamilton he's not getting any younger. I know he's probably got 3, maybe 4 more years left in him, but at the same time, it's wasting another year. Would those frustrations start to bubble up again? He did a lot of work last year on the car. Is that going to get any worse? Is it going to get better? I hope, for argument's sake, they're up there and they don't have a complete dog water car. But you just never know.
No,
with
and look,
testing
these
from these
designers,
guys.
these technical people, they are super smart and super intelligent, more than your average podcaster.
How dare you?
So they've obviously seen something on data, wind tunnel testing, simulations. It's like, look, this is the way to go. They've got all the data from last year to compare themselves to Red Bull and Ferrari, and they feel that they can unlock potential and performance from the car with this zero sideboard experiment, I guess you can call it, still, if they're considering essentially a plan B car.
Yeah.
So they can see something. It's something there. It won a race last season. It was the third quickest car. It's got 2 top drivers in. So I think, it's the normal, sandbagging and, just, don't say we're favorites just yet. I don't think anyone's counting them as favorites.
No.
But I think they'll be a lot closer than people will perhaps admit to. But you mentioned Aston Martin, and it's just been hype around
literally. You've got the goat behind the wheel,
the goat, Chad Alonso.
And I mean, he's been putting in regular shifts, regular numbers, like in all 3 of his testing sessions. He's been doing bits. Can't knock the bloke. Can't knock the car at this point. Again, it doesn't matter until it's lights out in a few days.
You don't know what people are testing, fuel loads, engine modes, but they definitely they made a big jump through the season, similar to Mercedes, and it looks like they made a big jump now. Whether it will be fighting for wins and poles, no, but will they get maybe a fair amount of podiums? Definitely. Will they give them something good to build off for 2023? I think so, and I think Alonso mentioned that not having Lance there was a bit of a hindrance, which I agree with, because he knows exactly how the 2022 car went, and he'll know, oh yeah, this is similar, this is the same, this is better, this is worse. So I think once he gets back in the car, like you said, I think they'll use a lot of teams will use the first few races out. We're still going to be testing, etc. I think his feedback will be super important as they continue to develop that car throughout the future. But that green looks stunning as well. And Mercedes
really
also
does.
back in black. Forgot to mention that.
Yeah, Mercedes back in black. I think the black suits them more.
I think it does. Yeah.
The only thing is that they do still look like a packet of Airways chewing gum. But I think if you'd have changed the green that they had on there to the silver, or like a bit more silver to still consistently call themselves Silver Arrows, I think it would have looked better. In all honesty, do you have like a favorite livery from testing, or no, or so far?
I really do like that Aston green.
Yeah,
that is amazing. I'll probably say that the Ferrari is second, and the Alfa Romeo, I quite like the Alfa Romeo.
Yeah, the Alfa looks good. The Alfa looks good. Yeah. And a special little shout out to the Williams air intake looking like a Duracell battery, which is brilliant. Obviously, did happen halfway through last season. Most people seem to have forgotten that. But that is brilliant. That's probably one of my best.
That's probably because the Williams was never on TV.
Yeah, it was never on TV. It's just at the back. Yeah. Or at least one of them was. Yeah, but I think a team we haven't actually mentioned is Haas. Haven't mentioned Haas from testing whatsoever. I feel like it's a good place for them to start compared to last year. Ferrari have apparently found even more horsepower out of that engine. Obviously, with the engine freeze coming in, they were focusing more on power before the freeze, and then they were focused on reliability. Purely, again, this is rules and regulations stuff, but it means that Haas now have an even more powerful engine. They've developed more of the car this year than they've ever done previous years as well. And they could potentially be pushing further up into that midfield. I think if you look back at 22 testing as opposed to 23 testing, you've got Kevin Magnussen obviously is in the car for all of testing this time, which is great. And hasn't had a year's break in a Formula One car, which is perfect. So I think they're in a really good position too. Their car looked good, and I don't think so far I've got a bad word to say about them. The only thing obviously is their pit wall has shrunk 50%, which is odd, but makes sense obviously. If you're listening to this podcast, you're probably reasonably interested in Formula One news. So obviously they're saving money on shipping, which obviously if they're not a budget cap, I saw a couple of people saying why are they trying to reduce shipping costs if that's not included in the budget cap. But obviously if Haas aren't even meeting the budget cap because they've only got 100 million to spend in a season, and 3 million of it is going on shipping. If you can save money somewhere, it actually would go towards the budget cap. So honestly, it makes sense. That's the only weird thing to come out of Haas for preseason. Everything else, they look in a really good position as well, I think.
Well, they have that uniquely designed rear fin.
Yes.
I'm not seen on any other cars. They've obviously got Nico Hülkenberg back, who's got a ton of experience. Again, he's taken a year out, so it'll be interesting to see how long it takes.
That is a very good point. But is he better than Mick?
Well, I think one of the reasons why they picked him was probably because he doesn't crash the car as much, and that costs millions of damage, which could be going towards development of the car. Yeah. They've obviously had a lot longer in the wind tunnel due to the new regulations, so it'll be interesting to see where they're at. They could definitely kind of make that jump into that midfield pack, and maybe even push that 4th, 5th place team.
Potentially, who knows? I think with McLaren being dog water from their testing, I think we could potentially see Haas push up to 5th and push McLaren maybe down to 6th.
You shit on McLaren for the whole podcast. Let's talk about McLaren.
So far. I don't really know what to say. I feel like as a McLaren fan, I feel like Zach's come in and just made everything worse. I genuinely
I don't think so. I'm going to disagree with you on that.
Oh god, here we go.
I think first of all, Zach is the commercial guy, right? He's brought in a lot of sponsors. Sponsors bring money.
True.
Money brings development.
I agree.
I think he brought in the right drivers, so giving Lando the longer contract, and I thought everyone at the time thought Danny Ricciardo to McLaren.
Yep, I agree. Yes,
and
true.
He he gave Danny a chance, and
Yep.
when it wasn't working, it's like, we've got you to go. We have to let you go. But I think he's the CEO and kind of co-team principal, along with, at that time, Andrea Seidel, now Andrea Stella. And I think, let me focus on the commercial stuff, managing the drivers, kind of managing the team, and let Andrea Seidel at the time, Andrea Stella now, you focus on the technical part.
True.
So I think if we're kind of going to look at where there's the weakness, it's definitely on the technical side. And
yeah,
I know they keep talking about, well, when the wind tunnel comes in, it'll help. But with McLaren's resources, with the personnel, you would expect them to be doing better than they are.
That's the thing. If you look at McLaren 2 seasons ago, back in 2021, doing amazingly well, won a race, and then obviously new regs are gonna put everyone in a new pecking order. Ferrari being second. No, I don't think many people saw Ferrari being second, coming from 4th, 5th, where they were the previous year. But at the same time, then if they had a terrible testing last season with their brake ducts or whatever it was, some issue with their brakes, and then this year you've got Lando punching a wall out of frustration, supposedly blown out of proportion, according to Will. Will initially said that he saw him punching a wall, and then has backtracked a little bit. But that's not a great sign. I don't go around punching a wall where my car doesn't particularly do very well. So I don't know. It just seems like things are going backwards.
I would just take these things with a pinch of salt.
True. Yeah, true. Pinch of salt for sure.
A lot of drama. Just let's just. Technically, anyone could come up and say, "Well, I saw Oscar Piastri doing this. I saw Fernando doing that." Like,
true.
All it takes is just someone with an iPhone to take a picture of like Fernando just like this. It's like,
falling
Fernando's
asleep. Yeah,
in the car, and it's like, you caught him for like 1 second. Do that face. So I wouldn't read too much into it, but it's clear like they're not where they want to be at testing.
That's more what I mean. They like so far. And I'm holding Zach accountable because he is the lead / whatever of McLaren. That's more what I mean. Under his stewardship, let's say, it seems to have gone slowly slipping backwards. I hope for my sake that's not the case. But when you don't get the best out of Danny, you've had 2 rubbish testings in a row. You brought in Formula 1 an unproven driver who is a rookie, which I understand he should do very well. He will not outscore Lando in the first season, regardless. He just won't. There's no way. Unless something ridiculous happens, loads of technical issues, like obviously Alonso and oh god, who's the French one? Ocon. Yeah. I think obviously unless you have a situation like that, I can't see him outscoring him. But if you look at their choice and bringing in Oscar Piastri, the drama around that, especially with Alpine, would it not have been easier? Hilarious. Would it not have been easier? And I would have preferred it to bring in Pierre Gasly. Would that not have been a better option?
I think obviously driver salary is not included in the cost cap.
Exactly.
But I think it was a decision in which is like, look, Piastri's
it's long term. It's a long term. Yeah,
and it's cheaper, right? Gasly will probably have asked for probably 4 or 5 times the amount of money.
Yeah, so... I know that if you're looking at, supposedly Daniel Ricciardo wanted 10 million. So if you're looking at Pierre Gasly, he's probably wanting 4 to 6, probably. Yeah. Whereas Gasly is probably wanting 4 to 6, maybe even 7 or 8. Who knows? Because he is a race winner after all. And then you look at Piastri, you'd maybe ask for 2 to 3, maybe. Yeah.
Again, and Lando's on a long-term contract.
Long-term contract, which I think McLaren got a very good deal out of it. Lando got the arse end of that deal. If Lando had signed like a 1 or 2 year contract, and then you look at potentially Checo, who isn't getting any younger, in that Red Bull seat, or potentially even, you never know, potentially that second Mercedes seat opens up because Lewis doesn't want to do it anymore after a terrible 23 season. It looks more likely. I think Lando was a bit stupid in signing that much of a contract extension.
I'm sure there's performance clauses in there, like if they don't finish above a certain position, that he can have an out.
I would imagine
a lower buyout clause.
There's loads of stuff in there for sure.
So, I don't think him or his team would be silly enough to just tie him in for years.
No, not at all.
Just not performing. Speaking of things that we keep forgetting about, Alpine.
Alpine. Yeah, sure. Yeah, let's go with Alpine.
Alpine.
Yeah.
Again, they got their pink car for the start, which
I like.
It is what it is.
I like it. It's
I
nice.
just don't think the pink and blue go together. It just doesn't work for me, but
Fair enough.
it is what it is. Yeah, Pierre Gasly in the team now as well, so he brings a wealth of experience. I think
does.
He's a good driver.
Yep. Not quite as much experience as the fossil for Alonso, but yeah.
I guess their key thing is it looks like they're playing it very, cards close to the chest. Everyone's been hyping around Aston Martin, but Alpine were the fourth quickest team last season and should have been comfortably so if it weren't for reliability issues. So I think expect them up there to be challenging for, if we go with Aston Martin being the best of the rest, challenging them for fourth in the constructors, perhaps podiums as well.
Yep.
But again, they're just forgettable. If it weren't for Alonso, they probably wouldn't have got as much coverage as they did in the past couple of years with his drives.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's really not much to say.
There's not much to say. They've just turned up, been French, and done some testing. That's literally all. That's it.
They just turned up being French.
They just turned up, were French, did some testing, and then that was about it. They went around the track a couple of times. There's nothing notable came out of them. Nobody's talking about them as setting the world alight. So far, anyway.
But sometimes that can be a good thing, right?
Yeah, true.
If you come in, it's like, this was our plan. These are the goals we wanted to achieve, and we achieved them. We weren't going for qualifying rounds. We weren't going for fastest laps. We weren't going for anything too crazy.
If you look at race pace, Alpine were apparently fourth.
Oh, decent.
So,
and I think another thing people forget during testing is they actually test where the cars are slow.
Yeah.
So they'll purposely put the cars in setups we expect the tires to be eating up really quickly in this setup. So go out and see it. It's like, that correlates with what we're doing. We expect you to have a bit more drag with this setup. So that correlates what we're doing. So when you look at times like, oh, that's a bit slow, that's a bit this, that's a bit that, it could be that they're testing for, all right, this is our operating window and we know it doesn't work in this operating window. We know it doesn't work with this setup and these tires. So it seems like they've just had a solid one. And then the last two teams, AlphaTauri and Williams.
Yep. I think I think that testing for AlphaTauri went pretty well. Yeah. Like bog standard, middle of the road. They didn't turn up and were French though. They just turned up and did some decent testing. And then I'm going to hop around between AlphaTauri and Williams. I think the only thing notable thing that I saw was they had an electrical problem with Logan Sargent in the car. When they pulled into the pit lane, but other than that, eventless. But they seem to do a decent amount of running, which is good. In race pace, AlphaTauri were the slowest, which I don't think obviously reflects very well on their car. But again, all of these testing times and testing data has to be taken with a pinch of salt. I think AlphaTauri will not be the slowest car on the grid. They just won't be, especially. And I think, going on slightly to their driver lineup, obviously you've got Yuki Tsunoda and Nick de Vries. I think if either one of them outscore each other in the season, it's going to be incredibly interesting, because if you're Yuki, you've been in the team 2 years, you've had 2 years of Formula One experience. You cannot let this rookie, who he is a rookie technically, you cannot let him outscore you. You can't. However, if you're Nick de Vries, if you don't outscore this rookie, you're a Formula E world champion. How are you not outscoring this rookie who struggled last year to score points consistently? I think it's lose-lose for both of them, realistically.
Yeah, and obviously Nick jumped into that Williams and got P9 in Monza, so he's definitely got the skills. So I guess
the Williams wasn't a particularly fast car on that day. At all. I mean, again, you can't really judge Williams too well when you've got Latifi in the other car, but still, it wasn't in the top 10 fastest cars that day, and I think Nick de Vries absolutely smashed it.
No, he did super well. So before we talk about Bahrain, should we do some predictions?
Yes, let's. We've got the Google Doc open.
Okay, how about this? How about We'll do driver, constructors, and then we'll go through each team and say who's going to outscore who.
Yes. All right. Sure.
All right. Driver?
Champion. Charles.
No, really?
I think Fred coming in will help massively.
Okay.
And Red Bull, or at the very least, I hope that it's Charles. Realistically, let's be honest, it's going to be Max. He's an absolute freak. But
Yeah,
I would love to see Charles, a new world champion. I would love to see his redemption a bit coming off the back of last year. Ferrari giving him an arse of a team. I would like to see Charles. I'm going with Max, obviously. I mean, it's stupid to pick anyone else, but I want Leclerc.
Is Max,
my prediction is Max.
Prediction
In a dream world, I mean, we all want someone else to be.
In a dream world, they all win.
True. Yeah, everyone's a winner. Everyone gets a participation trophy, everything. But yeah, no, Max. I'm going Max. What about you?
I mean, in a dream world, Alonso.
In a dream world, Alonso. Yeah, obviously. Yeah, I think. Yeah.
I agree. I think Max. He's got the beating of Sergio, and it looks like the Red Bull's strongest car. However,
yeah,
I'm going to go with Ferrari as a constructors' champions.
Ooh.
I think the pairing of Charles and Carlos is stronger than Max and Sergio.
Yes, I agree.
And I think, like I said, Fred is going to bring some stability to that team. They probably would have improved a lot on strategy, how they react, what they'll do in races. And I think they will outscore the Red Bull team.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think you could be right there. The only way that you're wrong is if, like, the Red Bull team just have unbelievable, like, Mercedes level reliability. Yeah. That's the only way that I think Red Bull would.
Or they're just so much faster than everyone, and they're just one-twoing at every race.
But I feel like if you look at last season's results as well, like Verstappen has some random 7th, 8th, 9th positions and stuff. Admittedly, he did go from 10th to 1st in one race in Hungary, but still, like I think that I would like to see Ferrari do constructors. I would like to see that happen.
Cool. Right. So I'm guessing out of Red Bull, we're expecting Max to be ahead of Sergio.
So I have a tier list here. I've opened one up. So if you want to, we can go driver by driver. So it's got 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th as a category. 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th as a category. 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th as a category, and then 16th through 20th as a category as well. So if you want to, we can follow it through and give like random estimations if you want.
I think let's do it team by team. I don't know if I can accurately put all the drivers in, but I think Max beats Sergio.
Oh yeah, every day of the week.
Charles to beat Carlos.
Yes, every day of the week.
I think Lewis will beat George in Mercedes.
Yeah, obviously last season was a bit of a sticky one, but with Mr. P5. But I think that now that Hamilton won't take as much of a back foot to make the car better in the long run, I think Hamilton over Russell.
Alpine, I'm going to go with... That's a tough one. I'm probably going to say Pierre.
I'm going Ocon.
You go Ocon?
He's experienced in the team. He's used to the car. I think Ocon.
I'm going to go with Pierre. I think maybe being out of that Red Bull environment, even though it's AlphaTauri, kind of will do him some good, and I think he's going to be a little bit more looser, a little bit more relaxed. Kind of first time in the new team, he won't have as much pressure as Esteban.
True.
And I think
I just have a funny feeling Ocon will literally look at Pierre, who he hates with all of his entire being, and go, "This is my fucking swamp. I am the number one driver. This is not happening. I will outscore you." He's already chatting shit about outscoring Alonso. And I think if you've been in the team for a couple of years, admittedly Pierre will have a bit more of a drive to, hit the ground running and actually outscore his teammate. But I think it's Ocon's to lose in terms of beating your teammate.
I think the whole Ocon Gasly thing is just blown out of proportion, and they'll be fine.
Who knows? Apparently, both the families hate each other, so it's going to be spicy either way. Like, I would love to.
This is what it is. Formula One is a big drama show, and occasionally they go racing.
The biggest traveling circus in the world. I said that to you, didn't I? When I was there in Belgium, it is the biggest traveling circus. It is a circus. It's insane. It's
you kind of look at it as it's actually marketing for Red Bull, Ferrari. Yeah. Oracle, BWT, and occasionally they go racing.
Occasionally they go racing every day.
But McLaren.
You have to go for Norris. if you're saying Piastri, I think Piastri is not the second coming of Hamilton. He's not.
No.
So
But he's very well regarded.
he's
F2
very well
champion.
regarded,
He's
and I'm not
F2
knocking him.
champion. He was going to be in
Yep.
the Alpine when Alonso left. So I don't think it'll be as much of a blowout as people think it would be.
No.
But yeah, it's definitely going to be Lando winning that battle.
Definitely.
Alfa Romeo. So we had this discussion earlier. I'm saying Zhu.
I'm going Bottas. Valtteri Bottas will beat
I'm saying Zhu.
Zhu.
He's got his 2022 out the way. He's comfortable with the car. He's comfortable with the team. You know, I think he showed some really good promise and performances last season.
I would personally argue, however, that although he's very good, I potentially think he is one of the least qualified drivers on the grid. Which I know is a bit of a hot take, but he didn't win F2. He was mid F2. He's never really set the world alight compared to some of the other drivers in their categories in their years. I would argue he's the least qualified driver of the grid, and so I have to give it to Bottas.
I think Zhu's I think he's going to do it.
I mean, fair enough. We'll come back in a year.
We'll come back at the end of the
it's
season.
Not even a year. It's like 9 months. 10 months. We'll come back and we'll see. But I can't give it to Zhu. I don't dislike the bloke, genuinely. Nothing wrong with him. But I just think he's the least qualified on the grid. I think even Stroll is more qualified. I know, like, obviously, my daddy pays for my Formula 1 seat. But at the same time, I think Stroll is probably more qualified. And has more years in Formula 1 as well. We have to remember that too.
So, speaking of Stroll and
Aston
Alonso.
Martin. It has to be Alonso. I want Alonso so bad.
It's got Alonso. Yeah, I just if he can get on the podium a few times this season, that would be brilliant.
I mean, can you imagine the limbs if he gets one podium, let alone 2, 3, 4, whatever? Like having.
Can you imagine the craziness if he wins a race, right?
I want him to bust out
Chad Alonso
his
will be shown
bird
everywhere,
celebration.
all over the internet.
Chad Alonso is brilliant. Yeah. Also, him griddying in the pit lane, brilliant. Don't know why he did it, but he just did it. The guy is just a vibe. He's just a vibe. All right, so Alonso. Well, Haas. Haas next.
Haas and then K-Mag.
Yeah, you have to give it to K-Mag. No disrespect to podiumless
Hulkenberg.
Hulkenberg.
I think Hulkenberg being out season, K-Mag having that season, knowing the car.
Yeah.
I think, suck my balls. I think he's a bit quicker as well.
It's hilarious. Yeah. It just is fun.
That's hilarious. But yeah, I'm going K-Mag.
Yep.
AlphaTauri.
De Vries.
I'm going De Vries as well.
De Vries.
Yeah.
You're not a world champion for nothing. Admittedly, it's Formula
I
E.
think
But
for me, him coming in and scoring points with that Williams, I think, De Vries.
He came in and immediately said, I mean business.
Yeah.
Immediately. He'll outscore him. He'll outscore Tsunoda.
Yeah. Williams. Albon. Yeah. It's going to be Alex.
It has to be Alex. I think unless I would love for there to be some sort of like wow surprise from Sargent, but I don't
not
think,
with Alex's.
But with Alex, you're not going to get that, especially over the teams that Alex has driven for as well, and in the years that he has in Formula 1. Yeah, it has to be Alex. But that was all the teams, right? We're not missing anyone.
That was all the teams.
No, that was all the teams. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think? Best rookie. Best rookie.
Nick De Vries.
You think De Vries?
I think De Vries. I think Alex is going to probably blow Logan out the water.
Yeah.
I think Lando will probably do the same, and I don't think that McLaren's going to be the best car to drive, probably for Piastri to show off his skills.
Potentially, yeah.
So I'm going to go Nick, especially if he comes in and he beats Yuki in his first season.
Yeah.
In that AlphaTauri, I'm going to go with Nick.
I think it's going to be close between Nick and Piastri. I'm going Piastri. And that's purely because I have a massive McLaren bias. That's purely through that.
Get it out now.
I'm looking through. I've got beer goggles on. I've got beer goggles on, and I'm going Piastri. I think I really hope Piastri is gonna is
I
gonna
think no,
hit the
I think
ground running.
Piastri will do well.
Yeah.
But against Lando in that McLaren, I just think it might be a bit difficult, and I think Nick will show his skills.
Yeah, I think he will, but I think Piastri could do it. I really do. Is that so? So there was a really good post by ESPN F1 on Instagram, which I've just pulled it up. So it's gone for like predictions around like world champion, which we've already spoken about, breakout star. They've said Oscar Piastri, and I would argue that young driver. You're saying Nick. Yep.
Yeah.
Most improved team. They predicted Aston Martin. This is before test. No, this is just as testing was going to start. I think most improved team Aston Martin for sure.
I'll say Aston Martin. Just even going by last season, what they did from the start to the end.
Yeah.
I'd say Aston Martin as well.
And then they've got surprise package, and they've put Nico Hülkenberg.
Hülkenberg.
I'm going with Alonso as my surprise package.
I don't think it's a surprise.
It's not a surprise, but it is. I'm going
to say Haas as a surprise package.
Yeah.
A lot of people still think of them as back markers, and I think they'll be challenging in that midfield.
Yeah, potentially, yeah. All right. Well, that's pretty much it then in terms of predictions. And like, you know, preseason testing. Obviously, now that testing's out of the way, we actually have the proper race.
It's
in
race
Bahrain.
week.
It's actually race week this week.
It's race week.
The Haas social post with the Chipotle sponsorship, unreal, love it. But we are in race week now.
Yeah.
For the first time in, I think there's 111 days between lights out in Abu Dhabi and lights out in Bahrain after testing, which is just it seems like a long time, but it's not. But it is.
It's one of those things where if you love Formula One, it's like an age. If you're not really into Formula One, it's like, oh wow, is it Bahrain already?
It's back again, are they? Yeah. Oh god, driving around in circles. Yeah, I think you're right, but I think it's going to be a very interesting race. I think that there will be a few DNFs.
I think there'll be some DNFs.
There usually is first race. I want to say last year's race. No, I swear there was maybe the year before there was like 10 DNFs in Bahrain or something like that. It was insane.
Last year the big ones were both Red Bulls DNFing.
Yeah, exactly. Bahrain. Was it 2020? I swear the first
2021
race of the season
was with Verstappen and Hamilton fighting.
Yeah, but I swear there was like a stupid amount of DNFs for one of the very early on races in the season. It was like maybe it was oh, do you know what I think it was? I think it was it Saudi Arabia? Yeah, it was Saudi Arabia. That's what it is. So Saudi Arabia, we only had 13 cars finished. That's where I'm getting confused. I do apologise. We had Mick didn't even start. And then you had Yuki, Latifi, Ricciardo, Alonso, Bottas, and Albon all DNF. So that's where I'm getting confused. But I think potentially we'll see 2 or 3 retirements.
I don't think we'll see that many though, simply because they've got that year under their belt.
True.
Well, actually, no. Saying that, they've obviously tried to work on the engines to get more horsepower out of it. Yeah. So there could be probably not too many. I think. I don't think the Red Bulls are definitely. There'll be no. I don't think any of the top teams will DNF. But I think for a top 3, I'm going to go Verstappen, Charles Leclerc, and just because we got to be crazy, Alonso.
Alonso, yeah. I'm going Verstappen, Perez, Carlos.
Oh. What about Charles? You don't think Charles will be on the podium?
I don't think that Ferrari will be able to push Red Bull off the top 2.
Yeah.
And there's always something that goes wrong during a race. And yeah, I'm just saying outside chance for Carlos. But Aston Martin could be well within the shout as well. But I'm just going to go Carlos. Why not? But I think definitely Red Bull 1-2 unless they have some sort of technical issue. Or like completely royally screw it up. I think they're just too quick. They had way too comfortable of a testing to screw it up that badly. And then I'm going Carlos I don't know why, just am. But then again, obviously, from my fantasy F1 last year, I seem to do pretty well. That's something we should probably set up for this podcast as well. Actually, we should set up our fantasy F1 team.
Yes,
Sure.
well, I'll do that.
We'll do it after.
Well.
We'll do it after, and then we'll come next time, and we'll go through our decisions. After Bahrain, I guess we can go through that. That'd be a good idea. But yeah, that's it for the podium at the very least. And yeah, like I said, a couple of DNFs, but I'm just looking forward to it. I haven't seen cars go around in circles in a while. And I've just been missing.
I need my fix, man.
Guilty. Gimme. Yeah, and then obviously we had Drive to Survive, which I think we will cover in another episode. But what?
Yeah, we could talk about it briefly, but we'll do like an episode
overview.
review.
If you had to describe the whole season in a word, that word is
mid.
I was going to say better. It's better than
I
the past two
think,
seasons.
Look, I think everyone knows Drive to Survive is a drama show. It's not a documentary. That was evident in the first episode. Where
yeah, absolutely.
I think the teams have cottoned on. They see it as a marketing exercise, and
which is why Max is back. It's like,
I think the problem is, I think they don't need to make it that dramatic. I think, like we've said throughout this whole podcast, it's a massive circus. They don't need to make it that dramatic, right? They just need to use it to explain the situations clearer. So the Piastri episode was an absolute shit show.
Yeah.
Right? Not as in the episode, but the whole Piastri contract thing.
Yeah, it really was. Yeah. I don't think neither of us realised it was that bad.
Yeah, and they didn't really build it up to what it was and show it in the episode.
No.
And I think you don't need to dramatize certain things, fake rivalries and all that. Just there's enough drama in the season, like the whole cost cap thing with Red Bull. You know?
Well, they dressed that up pretty well. To be fair, they did dress that up pretty well. I'll give them that.
It looks like they couldn't cover certain things, like Carlos Sainz's crash in Japan.
True.
And things like that. I just thought it didn't start off too well when it went into the whole Alpine at Haas. With Mick Schumacher, I think those middle episodes are quite good, and having the team principals and Christian Horner's and Red Bull's cost cap.
Can I just say, what kind of freak prints out a quote from Sergio Perez saying that the car is porpoising too much? Who does that? Like, that was like when he said it, I was like, of course you have, mate. You've really gone through the trouble of printing it out. You've like set file print as. Who does that? That's so weird. But I think for me. Too much Britain, and you didn't cover one of the potentially most important things, which is Carlos's first win.
Yep.
Mick, I think they did pretty well covering Mick. They didn't cover Piastri particularly well. They didn't cover the drama in Brazil. I had to explain to my girlfriend who had been trying to get into Formula One. And she is now successfully hooked, which is brilliant. But I had to explain to her the drama in Brazil after the Monaco, allegedly Monaco qualifying, Sergio Perez accelerating halfway through a corner spin. And they didn't mention Seb retiring.
No.
They just went, oh, isn't it going to be a shame that our poster boy Daniel Ricciardo isn't going to be here? What? Yeah, but you've missed out a 4-time world champion. You've not covered him whatsoever. That could have been a whole episode in and of itself.
Yeah, and I know Danny gets a lot of love, but Seb is fantastic in front of the camera.
Absolutely.
He's got a great sense of humour.
Yeah, brilliant. Maybe, obviously, he is quite private at points, I guess, so potentially he just didn't want that much involvement with Drive to Survive.
But I think, possibly, but I think that's if they focus more on the Formula One, if they just sat down with Seb, it's like, how did you find Formula One? Why are you leaving? What are you doing with it? It's like, I'd listen to Seb speak about 5-10 minutes on that. It's fantastic, I think
actually Sky Sports do a very good job of doing like mini documentaries around some of the stuff.
Yeah.
I'll give them that. I think those.
I think no one doubts the production quality of Sky Sports F1.
No,
not
at all.
It's just crazy expensive.
Especially after they got rid of some of my favourite hosts. I don't doubt them whatsoever. Johnny Herbert can fuck off. Me and Alonso are probably in the same boat. He can fuck off. Paul di Resta, he was mid, whatever. Don't really care. But Sky Sports Formula One, their production has been brilliant.
Yeah, I think bringing also we kind of go off tangent a little bit. Bringing in the drivers like Jensen and Nico to really explain what's going on in the car. It's just like that kind of stuff is
Mr. Anti-vax.
Brilliant.
What an absolute Chad. Doesn't get vaccinated. They've removed that rule for this season as well, of having to be vaccinated in the paddock. And Nico's just stolen a living, as far as I'm concerned. He just calls in from, I'm going on holiday this week, Sky, so you just have to send me the laptop to be on.
I'll zoom in.
I'll zoom in for this multi-million £1 production every week. And he's the best commentator there.
And I think, going back to Drive to Survive, I think that's one thing that it really misses, is because we're never going to get to drive a Formula One car. And even if you're one of the very few people that get to drive it, you're not going to drive in anger. You're not going to drive it against 19 of the other best racers in the world.
No.
You're not going to drive it with degrading tyres. You're not going to drive it with an engineer speaking into your ear about the gap behind, the gap in front.
Tyre pressures.
If they can really focus on that part to show what it really means to be an athlete in Formula One, I think it would actually explode. So you have that balance of the circus, the drama, Toto and Christian having it up and all that, but really, like, this is really what a driver goes through in the car as well, and exposing that part of the sport I think will open it up to more people, right? Because you can see Tyson Fury box, you can see Lionel Messi play football, but you never see Hamilton or Verstappen pushing a car to the edge, right? It only takes people like Brundle to show, like, he's ragging that car, he's driving the wheels off it, but you don't see it, right? You don't see it.
I'll tell you who else gives a very good insight. Damon Hill gives a very good insight into what it's like to actually driving a car as well.
So I think if Drive to Survive maybe tries to kind of, like, we understand the drama cells and the memes and Gunther and all that, you can still have that part.
Yeah.
But kind of go away with the fake storylines, the fake rivalries.
It's just perfect. It just is
and
perfect.
Just kind of like focus on what it actually means to be an athlete in Formula One. Even just talking about, so in like 2 weeks, this is how much we travel, So, you're in Bahrain, and then Max has to go to like a PR event in Austria, and then he goes back home to Monaco, and then he has to do like a PR event in America, and then he goes over to like Saudi Arabia kind of thing. It's just like, all right, wow, I knew they traveled, but I didn't know they traveled kind of thing.
I think they could very easily do a whole episode which is just pre-season up until the first race, and they show like, right, you've had your holiday, you've put your feet up, you've been to spas, you've done some fashion shoots, right, now you're going back into training and you're pulling 50 kilos each way on your neck. You're eating 4,000 calories a day because you're training every single day. You're doing this media and this media and this. You've got to do this podcast appearance. You've got to do this TV show. You've got to, turn up to this local school to talk about how cool you are. Like, and then also you've got to fly to Japan because you've got to sign a book deal or whatever. All the while on the plane, you've got to do your workout because you haven't got enough time. They could really, really showcase it better.
And then that's not including all the debriefs or
nothing
stuff.
Yeah, nothing like that. No. At all. I think that they could very easily do something around that. And my last complaint about DTS will be fucking do it chronologically, because it is. Why do we need 3 episodes on Great Britain? We don't just do it chronologically. Like, I think that obviously it's set up for an American audience where they can't follow multiple storylines at the same time, apparently. So just do it chronologically, lads. Like, what's going on?
Yeah, I think, look, they've got the audience now. They've broken the American market. They've got a load of new people in. If someone say, hey, I want to get to Formula One, there's Drive to Survive, here's 5 seasons. Now they can kind of start to, I hope, pivot the content, right?
Hopefully, yeah.
But it always gives a good insight. I think, like you said, Lewis complaining about like the media. I was going to say it's 4 long days, it's 3 days.
It was supposed to be 3 shorter days, and now it's 4 longer days, is what he said in DTS.
And that team principal meeting was comedy.
Incredible. Yeah.
Like an episode of The Office.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Well, actually, an episode of The Office was bloody Otmar giving Alonso his cake. Oh, it was hilarious. It was just so funny. Just so funny. What do I say? Feliz Navidad or whatever. He says something in Spanish, and then he's just like, right, okay, Feliz Navidad. Happy birthday, you moron! You had one job, lad.
Yeah, and also like that. is that really what he's like? That's the image, and
It
that's
seems
the
like it
visuals we're
is.
given by Drive to Survive. But is he really like that? Kind of thing. So I think again, Drive to Survive is like testing. Just take it with a pinch of salt.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't know what fuel loads are running. You don't know what tires degradation is.
No idea.
Like that. So in news, Lance appears to be okay. There's lots of rumors that he broke both wrists and this and that, and Sebastian was coming back and all that. But I think he was pictured with his father and someone else at an airport. Didn't look like he was in any casts. So it looks like he'll probably be back for maybe Saudi Arabia at a push, if not probably Australia.
Probably Saudi.
I
mean, I think that Aston Martin made the right choice in saying, right, Dragovic, if Lance isn't around, you're in the car.
The Vettel one was just like...
It would have been absolute limbs, and I would have killed for it, but I knew it wasn't going to happen.
I think just, it's a bit of hype, it's a bit of fun.
Yeah.
But I mean, Felipe's doing the test. Sebastian, don't know what physical conditions, and even if he wanted to come back, so...
Yeah.
That makes sense. AlphaTauri could be up for sale. That's very interesting.
So I think for me that is the easiest way that Andretti get into the sport.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see if they even let Andretti, because there's obviously a big thing with Andretti in Formula One, but
I think that honestly, let's not say too much more because that is a podcast episode in and of itself. Andretti trying to get into Formula One, definitely, because we can use that on one of the weeks where there's no race, because that's a whole topic in and of itself. But I personally, I welcome another team. I think it should be 12 teams on the grid.
I think that if I'm Red Bull, I know Dietrich probably would have kept AlphaTauri. If I'm Red Bull, I'm looking at it, I'm like, it's not really working that well as a young driver program.
No.
Right? If you look at who's come out of it, Max Verstappen, Sebastian Vettel, Daniel Ricciardo did. But if you look at Pierre, Yuki, Daniel Kvyat, other drivers that just weren't Jaime Alguersuari, Sebastian Buemi. Carlos Sainz didn't go to Red Bull though, did he?
No, true, but he was part of the driver program.
It's like we're investing all this money, we're not really seeing that much of a return. Which is why they put Perez in the car.
They own like 5 Formula 2 teams. Just use them.
Yeah,
and they're a lot cheaper to run.
I don't know about you, but I've never seen anyone wear AlphaTauri clothing in public.
Not in public, only at Formula 1 races, and it's only ever Pierre Gasly t-shirts.
Yeah. So if I was them, I think I would sell the team.
Yeah.
And then focus the money, like you said, on F2.
Yeah.
And the Red Bull Racing team. But, they've got their cost cap, which they were a little bit over. But,
0.6% over.
It's still over.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a whole discussion on the podcast.
Yeah, that's a whole nother podcast. Again, we'll wait for downtime.
You're over. If it's 0.001, if it's 0.6, or if it's 60%, you're over, right?
Yeah, true. Yep.
Catalonia has gone back to the old layout.
Thank
no more chicane.
God.
Thank fuck for that.
God. Don't get me wrong. I understand safety. I'm all for safety. But it's for motorbikes where people fall off all the time. Bring it back, and they did, which is brilliant. I think it's going to make for not only faster lap times, obviously, it doesn't take a genius to work that one out, but it's going to make for a lot smoother laps as well. And even the drivers complain about that chicane. So to take it out, everyone wins.
Well, we've driven it on the game, right? Obviously, that's nowhere near a Formula 1 car, but it's just annoying as everything, because you got that technical sector 3, and you come in, it's like brake, left, right, floor it. I think it's just going to improve the whole show. It's going to be better for overtakes, because it's super hard to overtake at Catalonia, and especially with now cars being able to be closer together. I think it should make Spain a more interesting, more fun race to watch.
Absolutely. Faster lap times, faster cars, more overtakes. Let's hope, anyway.
Good. And the final thing, which should be regular on the podcast series.
Yes, it should be.
Meme of the week.
Meme of the week.
Meme of the week. I think we've got 2 memes. We've got 2.
Yeah,
we
do.
Chad Alonso.
Chad Alonso is unreal. Absolutely unreal. Love that.
Chad Alonso. Is it even Chad Alonso? I think it's TikTok Alonso. Because he does
TikTok,
a Chad face.
I think it's on his TikTok. Yeah.
Aston Martin's social media person, getting Alonso to do that, I was like, you've got to be good.
But the thing is that like he seems like he'd be up for it anyway, and he probably even came up with it. Like not came up with the idea himself, but he would have been like down anyway, even if it wasn't like some social media intern pushing him to dance gritty, which is just absolutely incredible. And then you said we've got a second one as well.
The Aston Martin hype.
Just Aston Martin hype. Yeah. Inject it. Yeah, that's been pretty good as well.
Aston Martin Constructors World Champions 2023.
Yeah, I think the other personal highlight for me as well, obviously looking through McLaren goggles, has been the McLaren memes where it's just been like Daniel Ricciardo watching the team on fire from his $18 million mansion which he just bought. That has been incredible as well. I have to admit that's pretty good too.
Maybe we'll make it memes of the week.
Yeah, memes of the week. I think
this is just me putting my own spin on it. I'm totally making this up. But
when
I sent you that Instagram story of Alonso cycling, I was like,
and taking out Lance, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. 100%.
The whole Alonso taking out Lance meme is.
Yeah,
these people are so quick.
It's
so quick.
The internet is unmatched in its speed. It's absolutely incredible.
And its meanness and its memeness.
We could definitely make this like a weekly thing. And
we'll have to show the memes next time we do it. We'll show the memes.
Yeah, we can flash them up on screen. This is obviously very bare bones at the moment, especially as I look like the girl Violet from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory right now.
I look like
background
I
is purple.
Look at me.
A little bit, yeah. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, and also just the crap behind me as well. But I think
I think it's cool.
The next episode will be
better than what's behind me.
I have a Formula One shrine like above the desk. I have the poster that you bought me for Christmas on the wall here, but all you can see is just crap. But I think obviously this was a test episode for the podcast.
It will come in time. We'll have cool backgrounds. We'll be able to share screens. We'll have better mics and webcams and things like that.
Yeah.
So
we will definitely up the production value
a
bit more.
Sky Sports will definitely sponsor this.
Apparently after me saying that they're one of the worst companies in the world, they're bound to sponsor us now. And allegedly one of the worst companies in the world. But also we initially were like, let's aim for half an hour for a podcast. We've been recording for an hour and 8 minutes as of right now. Initially, obviously, we do have the little bit of the pre-intro where we were getting things started. But the podcast episode times may fluctuate. You don't know. You might get 20 minutes from us if it's a boring race. You might get 2 hours from us because we're talking about Red Bull's wings and their catering department. Who knows?
I think there's going to be a lot of drama this season.
Let's hope so, because it makes for good content stuff. Let's hope for that for sure. All right, well, I think that's about it. Like I said, we've been recording for over an hour now, so the episode will be about an hour long, which is potentially a bit longer than we initially wanted, but there we go. As I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, for those of you listening, if you want to email in questions, whatever it is, you can see our email on screen, and/or it is the 107pod@gmail.com, and that is like the numbers 107. And also be sure to have a look at us on Spotify and iTunes podcasts, and also Instagram and TikTok as well. We should be back for the next episode probably after Bahrain. We've done our predictions. We'll come back and see whether or not those were absolute rubbish or not. And after we get, a surprise Nikita Mazepin win in Bahrain, knowing how drama-filled Formula One is. But I think that's about it for this episode and this week. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. And cheers. See you next week.
Thank you for listening, and see you next time.
Cheers, everyone.